There are a lot of great projects you can make with utility fabric, but if you're new to these materials or have had trouble with them in the past, I have some tips that will help you get the best results. The utility fabrics we're going to talk about today are canvas, vinyl, mesh, and this nylon ripstop material. Canvas is a thick, heavy woven cotton fabric that will hold up well to wear and tear. It's a great material for making sturdy totes, duffel bags, certain upholstery projects, storage bins, and even some apparel pieces. This is a duck canvas, which has a tighter weave and will feel more rigid than a basic canvas. The main thing about working with canvas is to make sure you have a heavy-duty needle as well as heavy-duty thread. If you don't have a heavy-duty needle, your needle will end up breaking and can damage your machine. Using heavy-duty thread will help the seams hold up against stress, whereas basic cotton thread can end up ripping when facing the strain that the canvas projects are intended to withstand. Ironing canvas can be tricky because of how thick the material is, so a good way to alleviate some frustration when ironing canvas is to spray it first with water and give it a few minutes to let the water soak in. Then just use a regular hot iron set on a cotton setting. Because wrinkles are difficult to remove from canvas, it's a smart idea to store canvas rolled up rather than folded up. Vinyl is a synthetic material that's a great option for environments where you need moisture resistance, such as tablecloths, kitchen chairs, bags, and outdoor applications. I'm going to be working with this faux leather vinyl material. When sewing with vinyl, you'll want to use a non-stick presser foot because the vinyl will not easily glide underneath a standard foot. In a pinch, you can also add a small piece of clear matte tape underneath the standard foot to help the material move easily. You will use a needle that coordinates with the weight of your vinyl. I have a heavier duty vinyl here, so I'm using a heavy duty needle. I'm also using a heavy duty thread for the same reason. Your stitch length for vinyl should be wide, so you don't end up perforating the material with small stitches. Another tip to avoid unnecessary holes in your material is to use clips rather than pins when stitching your material. If you must use pins, you'll want to keep them within the seam allowance so that the holes that you do make won't be visible on the end. Because the needle holes in vinyl are permanent, you'll also want to avoid back stitching at the beginning and at the end of your seams. Instead, just pull your stitches through to the back of your work and hand tie them. When your work is complete, you won't be able to iron the vinyl with any hot iron because the heat will melt the material, so you can choose to top stitch the seams if you need them to lay flat. Mesh is a great material to use for bags for sustainable grocery shopping, pockets on the inside or outside of bags, laundry bags for washing delicates, and so much more. Sewing with mesh can be tricky because your machine will have trouble feeding the material when there are such big gaps in the opening of the mesh. One way to work around this is to use a layer of tearaway paper when pinning together your mesh before stitching. That way the feed dogs on your machine can grab the paper rather than grasping at air. Because of the gaps in the mesh, it's a good idea to just use clips rather than pins to hold your material together. You can sew slowly and just carefully hand feed the mesh into your machine, but be careful to avoid bunching, gathering, or stretching of the mesh. If you're stitching mesh onto a plain woven material, layer the fabric so that the mesh is on top, and then the feed dogs will be able to easily grab the plain woven material, which is on the bottom. Ripstop material is synthetic, usually nylon or polyester, and is a tightly woven material that is water resistant. Because of this, you don't want to go poking holes with pinning. Also, as the name implies, ripstop is a reinforced fabric that is resistant to tearing, so using more narrow stitching can compromise the fabric at your seams. Use a fine point needle to pierce through the material nicely, and then use a synthetic thread such as nylon or polyester that matches the weight of your material. I mentioned before that you should avoid pinning ripstop fabric, but slipping can be troublesome too, so a useful hack is actually using painter's tape to hold your fabric together as you stitch it into place. Also, because ripstop is so slippery, it can be helpful to use a walking foot to help evenly feed the ripstop material under your presser foot. Similarly to vinyl, you can't use much heat with ripstop, So if a warm iron isn't working to get you the finished look that you want for your seams, top stitching with a wider stitch length can give you the more polished look that you're after. Hopefully these tips have given you the confidence you need to get started on your next utility sewing project.